Hi everyone, welcome to Art Impressions Watercolor. I'm Bonnie Krebs with another tutorial for you. So I'm going to show you how to stamp and watercolor this beautiful rose set. So this is from a very large set, available only through scrapbook.com. This is a partnership we have done with them, and this is available right now at scrapbook.com. So we've included that link, and you can go to that link and get your set of these amazing stamps. There are 5 in this series, so there will be a video on all of these if you haven't seen them. This is the cherry set. This is the daisy set, and you can see these are big sets, and they have lots and lots of florals, lots of sentiments that you can use to create lots of different cards for your friends. And this is the Hydrangea set, one of my favorites, and actually I just love all of these. And the Poinsettia. So this is the Poinsettia. These are all exclusive with scrapbook.com, and I'm going to upload videos of all of these so that you can see how to stamp and watercolor these. They're so easy to do, quick and relaxing and fun. So this is the easiest way to color them, and you know, obviously you can use your Copic markers, your watercolors, your colored pencils. Like, there's so many different ways that you can color these, but if you want a really quick and easy way, I think this is the fastest way, and you end up with a little painting that looks like an actual watercolor. So I'm going to show you how to do this. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that you're using watercolor paper. That's a must. You cannot get this technique without watercolor paper, so you do have to use that, not cardstock. And then I have taken my large stamp, so this is the biggest one in the set, and I'm going to show you how to stamp that. Now I've chosen, there are a lot of colors that you can do with roses, but I've chosen one that's a little different, not your normal color, because I feel like those are easy to do. This one's a little trickier, and so that's why I want to include it into the video, but they're all going to work the same way. So regardless of the color that you choose, you can do it this way. So the first thing we're going to do is ink this up, and we're going to use 2 colors. So I have 2. I've got a light brown. This is a warm brown. This is a 947. And then I also have a green. This is a warm green, number 177. And then I'm just going to do a little bit with this dark brown, 969. So these are Tombows, but you can use any water-based marker that you have. It's going to work great. So I'm going to start out with the big roses. So these are the blooms only, and I'm just going to go over these with the brown. So I'm using that brown, and these little buds here, I'm just going to get parts of these. And you can see by the stamp I've done this in the pink, I've done it in the red, I've done it in lots of colors, and I just love this yellow, this orange one. Super fun. Don't be intimidated by, you know, a different color. It's not hard to do. Okay, so I've inked this all up in the brown now, and now I'm going to go on to the leaves. So the foliages, the leaves, the stems, these little branches at the bottom. We're going to ink all this up, and I'm using the side of my marker. So do that. Don't just use the tip, because it will take you forever to color this. And you do want to move a little quickly because this will dry on here. So you do want to get this color on and get it stamped onto your watercolor paper. And you know, if you don't get it on here perfectly, it's okay. If you get a little green onto the blooms, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Okay, and now I'm just going to add one more little detail. I'm going to take this dark brown now, and I'm just going to add a little bit onto the stems here, just to kind of mix it up. And now we are ready to stamp this image onto the watercolor paper. And just good even pressure. Don't press too hard. Don't just mash it into your paper. You want to see those lines, but you don't want them too thick. Okay, and it should look just like this. So now comes the fun part, and we're going to use a brush. This is a watercolor brush. This is a round tip, number 4, and I'm going to use that and water. So I have my water here, and I'm just going to dip my brush and pinch it off. And this is where we start with all of these projects. Pinch them off, and then begin by pulling the color out of the lines. So I usually always start with the green, but you can start with the blooms as well. And I'm just pulling this color out of the lines. So just kind of go the direction of these lines as you're pulling the color out. Try to leave some white spaces. So you can see I'm kind of following these lines as I go. And I'm leaving a little space in the center and kind of at the top here. And just pull this green out. Dip your brush again and pinch it off. Every time you dip your brush, you want to pinch it off. If you get too much water on here, you're gonna lose the lines. You're gonna lose the lines. They're really small, and you don't want to just have a kind of a blob. You can also see that I'm going from section to section, so I'm doing one leaf at a time. So I'm not just taking my brush and kind of coloring all over these leaves. Like I've got 3 together here. I'm not just taking my brush and coloring over all of them. I'm going leaf to leaf, section by section. And just kind of work your way around. When you run out of water on your brush, just dip your brush again and pinch it off. Super easy, fun, so fun. You can also stamp these ahead of time. So for example, if you're going on a trip and you don't want to take a ton of stamps with you, you can pre-stamp a whole bunch of these and then do them while you're sitting on a beach somewhere. Just take your water and your markers and just color them later. So now you can see that brown kind of coming out of these little branches. And we're kind of just mixing that up a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to add some color now to my palette. So this is a darker green. This is a cool green. This is a number 249. And I'm going to add a little of this to my palette and a little more of this bright warm green that I used before. So the 177. And I'm going to dip my brush, pinch it off, and take some more of this color and apply it just like I pulled the color out of the line. Stay in each section, kind of go in the same direction as the lines, leave some white spaces, and really that's all you have to remember. You can do these little projects so quick and easy, you know, when you need that card right away, and especially these florals, they're really good for any occasion. Lots of sentiments included. And you can, you know, stamp these things, pull the color out of the lines, and you've got a little painting that you could send out really quickly. It means so much to people, you know, that you took the time to make something special for them. Okay, so I have added some color here now to these leaves. I'm just adding a little bit now to these little buds. Doesn't have to be perfect. Never worry about that if you don't get everything perfect. No one's going to notice. You know, we tend to focus on one little area and no one else will notice that area. So I'm adding some of this cool green now. I think when you mix the colors up, you get a really nice look, and it makes it look more like a painting because everything isn't the same color. And just adding another color on here, I think really, really makes a difference. Shadows and, you know, it just changes the look of it because everything isn't the exact same. Okay, so we are ready to move on to the blooms now. And I'm going to clean off my brush and pinch it off just like this. And I'm going to start now pulling the color out of the lines, and I'm actually pulling the color from underneath. So you'll kind of see what I mean as I go. So instead of pulling this color out this way, I'm pulling it down underneath. So under each one of these petals, I'm dragging this brown color under, and that's because that's where the shadow is. That's where the darkest color will be. And along the edge, that's the lightest. So you want to really keep the color away from the edge. And if you can just kind of remember that, you're going to be really happy with how these turn out. So remember, you're kind of pulling the color the opposite way. so that you can see down into this flower and see where it's the darkest. And what we're doing is we're pulling the color out that's the shadow. So that's going to be the darkest color. So you can see it's starting to look more three-dimensional. And you can see how these light areas sort of bend the petals and make them look three-dimensional. And that's what we're going for. That's why we leave these white, especially around all these edges. Just leave them white. Don't add any color. And let's go on to this one now. So under the petals, see underneath here where they kind of bend over, and inside, that's where it's going to be the darkest. And then all of these things that kind of look like lips that are kind of folded over, those are going to be the lightest. And if you don't get them all perfectly, it's okay. Never worry about that. And you can see I'm really just kind of pushing the color around. I don't really have any brush strokes. I'm not painting anything like this. I'm just kind of taking my brush, the tip, and dragging that color out of the lines. Starting to look more three-dimensional. And then we can go over here to these little buds, little rose buds. So cute. And pull that color out as well. Okay, so we've got a good start here. So let's go ahead and add some color now to it. And I'm going to start out with my orange. So this is what color is this one? This is a 933. This is a bright orange, it's a pumpkin color. And then a warm yellow. This is a 993. So these two colors, and I'm gonna put them next to each other because I'm going to, actually let me turn my palette this way so I can see these better. So this is the yellow, and then I'm going to add the orange right next to it because I'm gonna kind of mix these colors up. And then of course I'm gonna dip my brush, pinch it off, and now I'm gonna apply the color the lightest color to the darkest. And I'm going to place it exactly where I pulled that color out. So same way that I pulled the color out of the lines, I'm gonna apply the color. Same areas. And you're using watercolor paper, so you can use quite a bit of water when you're putting color on. And just take your time. You're building this color up, so it's going to take a little bit of time. Be sure to leave those white spaces. That is really, really critical to do that. Once you color everything in solid, it's flat, and I think I say that in every video that I do, but it is so true. And once it's flat, it's really hard to get that dimension back. It's really, really hard to get that. So much better to just leave those white spaces and try not to color everything in solid. That's kind of a hard lesson to learn when we spend so much of our time trying to color everything in perfectly, and then someone says, don't color it all in, leave those white spaces. But you'll be so much happier with how it turns out. So now I'm adding some yellow now to these little buds. And I'm going to go back in now with a little more color. And underneath here, that's where the color is concentrated, is down inside these petals. Pinch your brush, just dip it in water and pinch it off. And I'm going to pick up some of this orange now and get some more color in here. And every time you do these, they're going to turn out a little different, and that's why it's your own art. Even though it's stamping, it's still your own watercolor, and it's so important to sign and date these things because you're using stamps, but they're just a tool. And you're putting out these beautiful little paintings that are just works of art. So you can see I'm just adding this color back in the same way. And the more times that you go over it, the darker it's going to get. Just avoid that urge to color everything in solid. And let's go with a little darker orange now. This is a 925. Let's put a little of this in. And this color is going to be way down in the center. So down in this area where it's really, really dark, we can put a little of this color in. And the more that you do these, the more confident you'll get, and the more willing you'll be to try different colors. If you place that color on here and you think it's too blotchy or too dark, just dip your brush in water and just blend it out. It's really, really easy to do that. Just blend it out. Sometimes I apply the color and it looks really blotchy to me, and it looks like it's not blended well, and I just take a wet brush and that takes care of it. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to take my fine tip now and really darken in these centers. And actually, we can do a little bit here as well. All right, we've got our little composition painted, and now we're going to go to the next step, and that is to pull the color to the outside. Now you can leave it like this if you like this. It's perfectly fine to just leave it, sign it, and date it, and put it on a card and send it. Or you can take the next step, and that is to pull the color out of the lines. And I do this nearly every time because I just love this soft look, and I think it gives an added dimension. And all I'm doing now is taking the edge, the color from the edge, and dragging it to the outside. So I'm just kind of touching it. I'm really not painting along the edge. I'm touching it, I'm coming along next to it, and then pulling it to the outside. And if you're not sure about this process, practice it first. Stamp this rose, this image, or use a smaller one, stamp it on a scratch piece of paper, and then try pulling the lines from the inside and then to the outside, and kind of get a feel for it first, because I just think it adds so much, and it will kind of fade your image out so that it looks softer, and I just love that about watercolor. I just think it just changes it so much when you do that. You could add a little more color now too. So this is a very warm blue. This is a 526, one of my favorite colors. And you can add some of this now. Dip your brush, pinch it off, take a tiny bit and mix it in here. This will mix with your green as well and give you a really beautiful color in the background. Also, one of the things I love about a palette is that you can mix your colors like we did with the oranges and the yellows, so you don't have all the same color. You can mix that. You don't have to do a ton of this, but you can see when you apply this blue how it changes depending on where you put it. If you put it next to the orange, that's going to change that color. And if you put it next to the green, obviously that will change too. So I'm just grabbing this dark green here and just placing a little bit under the blooms, just so that it kind of pops them up a little bit. And we are about finished with this little painting. See how fast and easy that was? It is so fun. I hope you try it. Be sure to sign and date. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm using a fine tip. This is a twin tone, and it's a brown, and it has a very, very fine tip. This is also from Tombow, and I love it because it's so easy to sign and date at the bottom of your composition. So it is finished. You can cut this out. You could put it in a frame, but give it away to someone that needs encouragement. You're going to totally make their day. These are all available now. All 5 sets are available at scrapbook.com, and I hope you will give them a try. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back again with more watercolor.